Well, it's 4:01. It looks like we do have a quorum. Let's go ahead and call the roll, please.
Birmingham,
Here, just in time.
Hint,
Here.
Stam,
Here.
Lasky, Ponick,
Here.
Belter,
Here.
and Palmieri.
Here. All right, next we have the minutes from our closed session, January 20th. Do we have a motion and a second for those minutes?
I'll move approval. Second.
All right, any discussion on minutes from January 20th? All right, please call the roll.
Birmingham,
Aye.
Hint,
Aye.
Stam,
Aye.
Ponick,
Aye.
Belter,
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye. Okay, next we have 2103 public hearing, approve spot blight designation, approve acquisition of property at 548 Otter Avenue, 50,000. And do we have anyone registered to speak on this item?
No, we do not.
We do not. All right, I'll make a second call for anyone wishing to speak on the public hearing, 2103, 548 Otter Avenue. And a third call. Anyone wishing to speak on 2103 public hearing, spotlight designation 548 Otter Avenue. All right, can we have a motion and a second for 2103?
I move approval of 2103, approve spotlight designation.
I'll second it.
And discussion?
I was just had a quick question, and it was when I read that, did I read that correctly that they wanted to sell the property for $50,000 and then the owner was looking at buying it back?
I'm sorry, that was not clear enough. The adjoining property owner would be interested in buying it, not the selling owner.
Okay.
And then I also had a question. So in the supporting information, it indicates that the fair market value is like 106,000. And on the assessor's website, it shows that the land is valued at 11,000 and the building is like 83. So I'm kind of curious as to why we would buy it for 50,000 if the building is so deteriorated that it has to be raised. Wouldn't that reduce the not only assessed value but the fair market value?
Yes, the assessed value would add up to about the 94,000 as you described. We also adjusted the fair market value because our assessments are not at 100% nowadays. There's been too much change in the market. So that 50,000 is close to the 94 assessed value. It's certainly less than 50% for the fair market value for the property. And the land itself would remain, and that's what we would have to sell it for, the fair market value to comply with CDBG requirements.
But that 94,000 includes the building, right?
Yes.
As if the building were still in good condition, correct?
Correct.
So then it would be reassessed once it was raised to a lower dollar amount, correct?
Well, if the RDA would purchase it, it would become tax exempt, in fact.
Oh, of course, of course.
But then we would need to sell it for fair market value, which fortunately we have that data to support the acquisition price.
Okay, so then you would sell it for the 50,000?
I'm sorry, if we're only selling the lot, we're selling the lot for the lot's fair market price. because the building would be removed at that point.
So, and that was what, $11,000?
Correct.
Okay.
So that doesn't present a problem then, us using like CDBG dollars, purchasing it for more than it's actually worth?
The purchase would include the blighted structure, so that's included in the purchase price. So the 50,000 does include the lot improvements. When we tear the improvements down, that value would decrease to about $11,000, and that's what we would have to sell it for.
Okay,
Not the full 50,000 that included the blighted structure.
okay. I'm sorry, I got a little twisted on that one. Other questions or discussion?
Just a reminder, because I keep forgetting these things, is that in one of our areas, our blighted areas that we want to improve?
Yes, in fact, it's in the River East Neighborhood Association, and they're doing a Rock the Block improvement later this spring. So not only is it in one of our target neighborhoods, it's at the time that would be very beneficial to the neighborhood, in my opinion.
But it, Sue, it's not in one of the redevelopment areas, but it is in, as Alan said, one of the targeted neighborhoods for revitalization. I don't know if you were asking about the redevelopment zones or areas.
I was asking about the redevelopment zones, but I'm okay with it being in one of the other
Okay.
areas too.
And as to follow up, whenever you see approved spot blight designation, that means it's not in a redevelopment area. Otherwise, they're automatically included as a blight designation. If they're already in a redevelopment area, they've already been determined to be blighted.
Okay, thank you.
Good reminder.
Mhm.
All right, shall we call the roll?
Birmingham,
Aye.
Hintz, Hintz, Stam,
Aye.
Tonic,
Aye.
Belter,
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Not sure if we should wait for Steve or,
He has an orange triangle on my screen.
I wonder if he lost his connection.
Oh, it says due to low bandwidth. According to mine, it says due to low bandwidth or local computer conditions, the video is not working. It said it may resume automatically.
Mr. Hintz? Well, I'm afraid that we don't have Mr. Hintz at the moment.
We'll have to put him down as a no vote at this point.
Yes. All right, but that was, let's see, what was the count here?
it passed 6-0.
6-0.
Mr. Hintz did make the motion to approve.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Okay, well, let's go ahead and move on then to 2104, approve continuing urban green space use northeast corner of Central Street and West Parkway Avenue. And we'll have a motion and a second for this item.
I'll move approval.
Mr. Belter moves.
Birmingham seconds.
Birmingham second. Thank you. Discussion.
I was just a little confused about the pictures. How does this tie to this? Motion.
Is Ms. Brandt here?
Yes, I am.
Did you hear Sue's question?
Yes, I did. I'm not exactly sure why you're asking, Sue. The pictures relate to a conditional use permit that was approved in 2014 for these urban green space, well, we're calling them urban green spaces, but these community pocket parks that Ms. Palmieri likes to call them.
Of course, Mr.
And-
Maurer doesn't agree with me on that,
Oh,
but
no.
we'll just say green spaces, right?
So we have provided pictures of the original approval, and it's, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, to tell you the truth.
Well, I guess
Every year-
my
every
question
year
is,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, my question is that we're calling it a community garden here. You've just used the word community green space and
Mhm.
something else. So is it a community garden in the sense that I'm thinking of a community garden where people actually plant vegetables and things like that, or is it not that?
Yes.
There's raised beds at the green space that are used for educational purposes, and the neighborhood uses the green space for various activities. I believe, is this the location, Ms. Palmieri, that was being used for educational purposes for the children so they could plant seeds and watch them grow? Or was that the other?
Oh, that was an additional feature, but it's both this one and the next one are neighborhood gathering spaces. But yes, where the raised beds are, and Ms. Nazunas is here too. She's part of the neighborhood as well, and she and several of us planted last year, enhanced the butterfly garden as well as planted the vegetables, and we had a mysterious donor who planted a second round of vegetables towards the end of the season.
No.
So lots of folks involved there, and there have been some youth informal education. I wouldn't say like formal programs or anything like that. It's just general use by the neighborhood, and it's kind of free will, quite honestly, in that location.
Okay, I love the way it looks, and I was getting to that point. But I was just a little confused as maybe the wrong pictures were with the wrong thing, because my idea of a community garden is something very spacious with rows of carrots and things like that.
Yeah, we have not really permitted the in-ground planting of materials. So that is why the raised bed gardens are being used, and also the neighborhood maintains the lots, takes care of grass cutting, snow removal. And it's used by the neighborhood. I'm not sure if Ms. Palmieri knows, but I don't think there's any outside activities. It has to be somebody in the neighborhood that is using the space.
Yes, and you know, in addition to that, and I noticed too that those were the original. I think there were some original pictures there from when I think the first year maybe, and I noticed also that was back before I was on council, and I was the Middle Village coordinator, which since I come on council, I am no longer. So I guess the question might be whether or not the neighborhood needs to submit a new application or revised application with a new coordinator's name on there. I just happened to notice that right before the meeting.
I think we can continue the conditional use permit, but I guess that would be Mr. Davis's decision. But if you could provide a new contact person, because usually if I have concerns or issues with something happening at either of the locations, I usually contact you. So.
Yep, no problem. And my husband is usually the one who's doing the shoveling at that space. And then there's other neighbors who pitch in from time to time in that one and at the other one. So it's been, yeah, we've been pretty fortunate. There's only been like 1 week, I think, that we had some difficulty this past winter. And that was when he injured his back and we had to find somebody else to help out. So, yeah, so it's been a great experience. The neighbors really appreciate it. This past year, it was very fruitful, no pun intended, in terms of produce that came out of there. So thanks for asking, Sue.
And the conditional use permit would continue. We just need a new contact name. The conditional use permit runs
Okay.
with the.
Sure, we'll get that updated. All right. Can we please call the roll?
Birmingham,
Aye.
Hintz, Stam,
Aye.
Panic,
Aye.
Belter,
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye. All right, then moving on to 2105, approve continuing urban green space use southeast corner of Ida Avenue and Franklin Streets. Can we have a motion and a second on this item?
I'll move approval.
Second.
All right, discussion. And for Sue's benefit too, I'll just explain, this is a couple of blocks away from the other one, and it's more of an open space that's more passively used. Although there've been quite a few picnics and barbecues and drum circles and those kinds of things over the years, nothing happened last year other than maintenance. Are there other questions or discussion on this one?
Was that the one with a big structure on it that looked really nice, or was that the one before this?
This one is the one that has the stone kind of paver circle with a little bench area. It's much more impressive in the picture, but it's very much used. You know, sometimes the kids will sit on that. We have had in the past, I think one of the stones got overturned. Somebody got a little rambunctious, I suppose, and it wasn't completely glued down. And thank you, Ms. Branch, for getting that taken care of last year. I think that was last year. It's not fun to weed, I will tell you. Just for any future neighborhoods that might be considering those things, yeah, that's a bit of a challenge, but hey. Other questions, discussion? Can we please call the roll?
Birmingham,
Aye.
Hintz, Stam,
Aye.
Panic,
Aye.
Belter,
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye. All right, our next item then is 2106, approved professional service agreement with Aecom for design, engineering, permitting, and construction documentation for Pioneer Drive Riverwalk, South Main Street to the railroad tracks, $260,000. And we'll take a motion and a second on that item.
I'll move to approve Stam.
Do we have a second?
Oh, second Belter.
All right, discussion. This is an exciting one.
Doesn't it seem a little expensive to anyone else? I'm just curious what Aecom charged per foot when we did the Morgan property or some of the other properties. It seems like it's about $1,000 a foot, and all they're doing is watching over the construction. Did we get any other bids, Alan?
Aecom has been our consultant on all these Riverwalk projects. The last time we bid it out was for the Oshkosh Corp project, and Aecom still was the low bid responsible bidder even on that project. So we're continuing to use Aecom. Aecom's most knowledgeable about the property. They've already done the 30% plans that we've used in the past. And we've also used Aecom for the remediation and the land adjoining the property, and this is part of the RFP area. So we thought it would be best to use the same group so that we get the same answers on all the questions when it comes to how does this connect to the balance of the redevelopment site. And this is a redevelopment area, and that's why it would be on the agenda. Their overall cost is still in line with what we expect for engineering from design to construction. It's going to be somewhere in the 15 to 20% range for the overall cost for design, permitting, inspections, record drawings, all the way through. And that's been typical of all the projects that we've had up to this point.
Okay, I'm just trying to keep them honest. And when when you click on Aecom, they are a nationwide firm with a couple $1 billion in sales. So they know how to bill and make money, but that also means they're good at what they do. So
Yes, and we've been fortunate in that we've been able to successfully complete all these Riverwalk projects, and it's no small fact that Aecom knows what they're doing with these projects too.
okay, thank you.
Thanks for the question, though. That was a really good point.
Well, it's like
Any other-
$250,000. So
Is that grant money?
No, in this particular
That's-
case, we did not get a grant last year. And I've been talking to City Manager Roloff and Finance Director Van Gompel. They've come up with a financing strategy for this project as well as other projects that they'll be presenting to council. The $260,000 is already in the city's CIP budget for 2021. So we've got plenty of money for the design. And based on the response for the RFP that we were getting so far, we think we need to start this project here in 21 and preferably finish it, because I think we're going to get proposals that are going to want to start construction in late 21, beginning of 22 for the landward side of the Riverwalk. So I'd like to get this out of the way and remove an obstacle of development for that whole redevelopment site.
Let's go.
All right. Any other discussion before we vote? Please call the roll. Did Mr. Hintz make it back? Oh. Mr. Hintz, are you back with us? All right, let's call the roll, please.
Birmingham,
Aye.
Stan,
Aye.
Conick,
Aye.
Belter,
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye. All right, our next item is Community Gardens update. And this is regarding the 5 parcels that were put out for RFP for community groups. Who is taking that item?
I'll start and then I'll hand it off to staff who have been working on this. If you recall, we received a proposal for the South Oregon property, and we've been working with that community garden group. And we've had several meetings regarding some of the issues that an urban garden presents that we need to address with them. One thing that we have been doing as well is meeting with other communities that have created community garden programs. And the last one we've met with was Madison, is what I recall. I couldn't attend that meeting, but Kelly Knifelworth and Darlene Brandt, I believe, were part of that conversation, so they can give you a brief explanation as to what we found out. And I know we have a meeting coming up, I believe, with Brown County later this week regarding how they run their community garden programs. And we're still hoping to talk to Milwaukee County, or it was the city of Milwaukee, about how their programs are operated. So Ms. Knifelworth, if you could talk a little bit about what we learned about Madison's, that would be good.
Sure. And like Alan said, Darlene and I were able to participate in the call. And then the group that is proposing to have the community garden on Oregon, they were also involved with the meeting, so which was helpful. You know, it is kind of interesting to find out what other communities do. So I can kind of give you some information about what Madison is doing and some advice they gave us. First off, there are some pretty big differences. Madison has been doing this. They've been partnering with a group called Rooted since 1996. So this is, you know, something that they've been doing for years and years and are seasoned veterans. So we have a lot to learn from them since we're just at the starting line. Some of the differences, you know, of the kind of the approaches is that Rooted gets long-term leases. So the gardens and the 501c3 groups, when they come forward and they're putting all this work and effort into the gardens, that they, you know the next year it's not going to be sold for redevelopment. And that was something that was a big difference between the parcels that we're proposing, because obviously, you know, we want to see the RDA parcels go back on the tax roll and be sold for redevelopment eventually. And then in the situation with Madison, a lot of their community gardens are on city property, school district property, county property that is not going to be sold. Long term, it's going to remain, owned by whatever entity it is. So that was one thing that was a big difference between our two cities and how we're approaching this. And then the Rooted and the different gardening groups that are coming forward and want to operate, the different garden plots, they do not own the parcels, as I mentioned. So that's another thing that we had talked about. We would eventually like these gardening groups to own the parcels, but in this situation, they don't. They do get their own insurance and they, meet the requirements of the city. And this Rooted group, I believe, and then I think the garden members help pay for those insurance. And then the city actually even chips in for paying for part of a salary for this Rooted member. I believe they have over 20 staff members. They go for grants, federal, state, local. So they receive lots of different, funds to help pay for staff to help coordinate this also. Some advice they gave us was to partner with like a 501c3, a group that could potentially kind of be that coordinator, for the city that could, help get the different groups that would want to lease a plot. They said, identify pieces of land that are going to be there long term. So folks that, put the effort into it, they will be more apt to take care of it and not worry about it being sold. They also mentioned about, the type of parcels we have to offer now, larger parcels with more amenities, access to water, for watering, the gardens and, parking and everything. So they're giving us some hints with that too. So it was really a lot of great information that they provided. And I think we're excited to hear what Green Bay and hopefully Milwaukee are doing too. And I think in the meantime, the local group here, they're still working with us. I think they still want to do something, but they're kind of learning along, the process like we are too. Darlene, was there anything else that you picked up from the meeting with Rooted that I might have missed?
Nope, you covered it very well. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, and I'll just say that I had a great discussion with the gentleman up on North Main Street who's acquired a building recently to do some container gardening, some classes, some seed swaps, and he's got his own army of 8 children that are at, some of them are at Merrill. So he wanted to do some partnership with Merrill, who may have an interest, although I don't know if he's been in touch with Alexa yet or not. I directed him to Alexa. I know he's, this is kind of a side thing for him, but there may be an interest from that individual. Or Jericho Gardens is also on the same block. They have the greenhouse and the thrift store there. They were at the farmers market this weekend, and I made them aware of the availability, and they had noticed the RFP and had been talking a little bit with their board. So it's my understanding there's also a potential other 501c3 group in the city that may have an interest in putting a proposal forth for multiple parcels. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. So that's all I know at this point. It's a little bit disappointing that some of the folks who had really wanted this maybe lost some of their enthusiasm to actually take advantage of some of the parcels that were identified. But I think location, and like you mentioned, Kelly, other cities have had maybe some more success with, different types of setups. So thank you guys for doing that and following up.
Sure.
All right. Now, if I can jump back to, there we go. Next is the value of the untaxed taxable land from the assessor. Is that you, Alan, or Kelly?
I'll start talking about it and other people can chime in. Luke Alger is the city assessor, so I asked him to put together, right now the RDA doesn't have assessments or values on their property, so I asked him to work backwards basically and come up with a value for the land that the RDA owns the best way he can. So we got him the list of the parcels, and then he could backtrack on what the prior land might have been assessed for before the RDA owned it. In some cases, we had good documentation. In some cases, we did not. And lots have changed over the years, so sometimes the assessments aren't easy to track at all. But you should have received in your packet a list of the parcels that the city owns based on address, parcel number, the size, and the current land would be 0, of course, but the prior land column would identify how much that value would total to be, and that includes the big redevelopment areas that we have, both north and south side of the river, as well as the scattered sites that we've developed over the last few years. And that comes up to almost $1.2 million. And that is spread over 21 acres. So that gives you an idea of what kind of value the RDA is holding in its land bank at this point in time, depending on the location. Certainly the ones that are more commercial in the downtown area, if you do the math, you can see those are higher per square foot. The residential are still going to come in somewhere around $10,000 or $11,000 per lot. I should probably mention that some of these parcels, the RDA didn't technically acquire. When the RDA was created, the city actually had a number of parcels that had already been acquired by the city, and those were transferred to the ownership of the RDA. So we don't have real good documentation in every case about each parcel. Some of these are old railroad parcels. Some of these are old, I want to say, city public works parcels that are left over, or they're being held for public projects, street widening, things of that nature. So not all of them are strictly for redevelopment for private development, but some of them are kind of a mixture. So it's hard to compare all of them combined, but in general, it totals up to 21.5 acres valued. The best guess right now is about $1.2 million.
Alan, I just want to, I was going to say, Alan, I just want to thank you for getting this done. I can't imagine the amount of time and effort it put into getting this report, but I think it's something that we can use over the years as like a baseline for what we have. Yeah.
And Ellen, there have been some folks in the community who have asked, I think several years ago, there was a plan that the city-owned vacant parcels would have signage on them of some sort that identifies that they're for sale and they are opportunities. Where are we at in that? And I mean, sometimes I see some, sometimes I don't. Obviously, like you say, those little sliver parcels, maybe not so much, but.
And we do put the signs up on the lots, both the redevelopment sites and the scattered residential lots. It is a challenge to keep the signs on the property in good condition. And maybe Ms. Brandt, that's unfortunately, one of her responsibilities is to patrol the lots and make sure that they're not only in good maintenance, but also the signs are still there. And we run through a lot of signs through the years. So Ms. Brandt, is there anything I'm missing on that?
Nope, you covered it. Good job. Thank you.
So
I just know we do put the signs up as soon as we know they're gone, but we don't check every day. It's every few weeks or a month between visits. So as soon as we still have them in stock, and we've ordered some more, and we put them up on a regular basis.
I guess the question is, since we've started that process, have the signs generated calls and inquiries, or are they kind of a waste?
No, they've generated several calls over the years. Some of them productive, others more inquiry, or the use that they're proposing isn't an allowed use. So
Oh, sure.
it kind of varies.
But it does generate phone calls.
Okay, well, that's
Just-
good to know.
Mhm.
And then my other question is, someone had asked if there was a place online they could go look at all of the parcels for sale. And I know some of them are separated out, right? Commercial, industrial, but is there a way in which our Connect Oshkosh app that there's some way of using that? I don't know if that's even a thing.
I know we have them all listed on our Develop Oshkosh website.
Okay.
Nyforth, I don't know how the Connect Oshkosh works with our website, and that might be something we have to follow up with IT on.
Yeah, I don't believe they're connected right now, but on Develop Oshkosh, we have the redevelopment sites, the residential sites, business park and industrial parks, all listed there with sites, the different sites for sale, and then like a map to show folks where it is.
Okay.
And
Well,
just so,
maybe, yeah.
I'm sorry, just so everyone realizes that some of the sites are not for sale at this time because we are doing land assemblage for future redevelopment of an entire block or block frontage. So some are not for sale at this time.
Is that the case, for example, with the Jefferson Street lots continuing?
No, those are for sale.
Those are for sale.
Oh, okay. All right. So we haven't heard any more on things like that. Okay.
No, I'm referring to like over on the south side in the South Shore redevelopment area on
Okay.
8th and 9th Avenue, where we have acquired several of the properties, but there are several that still could be acquired. Not that we will acquire, but could be acquired by the city or a private developer. So those are the types of things, those scattered sites in some of the redevelopment areas.
Well, maybe we need to have our signs facing the river and the lake for the folks who are boating this summer, huh? On the ones that are for sale. Well, thanks for that update. And Sue, you're right. I know Kelly has been so helpful over the years. I think every year I email her and say, hey, can you give me an updated spreadsheet on that? Because I'm always seeing that amount increase. And this is an increase, even the trend is continuing to increase in the amount that's not taxed, correct? Or where are we at in relation to the last couple of years?
Well, that's a good question. There's some parcels that aren't on this list anymore for I think in Marion Road, we've sold all those properties, and my guess is that probably the Marion Road parcels had in excess of $1 million of land value. So we've probably reduced it most recently with the merge redevelopment, because we sold all those parcels, and with Mr. Dumke's developments, we had well in excess of $1 million of value, and now it's all in private hands. My expectation is with the South Shore, as Ms. Brandt indicated, we'll assemble some more on some of those sites, but some of them we're on the cusp of being able to sell again with the project for the RFP out right now, as well as Mr. Dumke's project there on Main Street. That would be another 3 or 4 parcel assembly that we'd be able to sell, hopefully in the near future. That had like a gas station, a print shop, and a lot of different uses on that, and a lot of different parcels, and we combined that in one CSM. And so there's a lot of parcels that could be sold in the next year, depending on how things turn out for financing in the most part.
All right. And then is that kind of folded in with that RDA sold properties? Is that what you're referring to? Yep.
Yeah. Yep, that was a follow-up to another question we had at the last RDA meeting. This one was a little more difficult to put together than I was expecting. As you can see, it identifies when the parcels and when we sold them. It only goes back a few years because we'd have to spend a lot more work to document all these items for the properties that were sold prior to 2018. On a map, we could probably do it, but if you want all the details about parcel number and acreage and acquisition price and how much we sold them for, unfortunately, that would take a lot more staff time that we just didn't have time between meetings to do. And if you want us to do it, we're probably going to need multiple months to put that together because it'll take a little time and research. And we're down staff right now because Mr. Woosman has taken another position and Ms. Nyforth is recruiting for that vacant position. So it's going to take a little while to get all that done. But the information I'm sure is out there. It's just we've never had to assemble it until just recently. And if we're going all the way back to 2005, that would be a lot of research, unfortunately.
Any other questions or discussion on that item? All right, Mr. Davis, the Executive Director's report.
Thank you. As you're aware, the RFP is out for the Healthy Neighborhood Initiative. I mentioned the Rock the Block is in River East coming up this spring in June. Several days for projects. The South Shore, we've gotten quite a few contacts from local and regional developers interested in that property. I'm cautiously optimistic we're going to get a handful of proposals here in the middle of April. April 16th, I think, is the due date. Give us a little time to sort through them and put them in, make sure we have enough information so the RD can review those at your May meeting. And hopefully we can make some kind of selection here in May for the proposers for both the 43 7th neighborhood. The Pioneer Marina and Island area, Mr. Dumke is still working on developing those plans, and we've worked with a lot of other developers interested in parts or all the island. So again, we're working with a lot of people. Hopefully one of them will come through for the redevelopment of the Pioneer Island and Marina. Let's see. The Miles Kimball building, if you recall, that was a TIF application that was submitted earlier this year, and council did approve the TIF plan on March 9th. And I would expect the development agreement to be in front of council for action sometime in April. Let's see, I mentioned the Pioneer Drive Riverwalk. We did not get that grant application, but timing is such that we think it's important to get this project done without a grant, and Mr. Roloff and Mr. Van Gumpel have a funding plan, and they will be presenting that to council in the very near future. And then the two other, well, the Bulwarks property, nobody has an option on that. The Morgan Partners option expired, and Mr. Dumke still does have the offer for the South Main Street properties. He's still debating as to whether he'll apply for a LIHTC round for that property. Good news on Merge. They continue working on the Brio building. As you can see that going up, that 5-story building, and they've started the building planning and design for their next site, which is the parcel J along the river called Maxon Corner. At least that's the working name for that building. If you recall, that's a mixed use with commercial on the first floor and residential above it again, and some townhomes along the riverfront. Let's see, Morgan Crossing Phase 2, if you recall, that was a project from Peter Youngbacher for Morgan Crossing, almost identical to the original, and he ran into some issues with the ATC line on the property, so he's had to modify his plans, and he's expecting to come back to us in the near future with modified plans for that property.
Mr. Davis, could I go back to the one prior, the other Merge property? What was that?
Yeah.
Maxim Townsend?
Maxon Corner, am I pronouncing that right, Ms. Nyforth?
Yeah, MACKSON Corners.
Okay. There were some questions from some of the, the clinic, the Aurora Clinic folks. They had said that there were a lot of, I guess, looked like some kind of soil sampling things going on kind of all around their building. And I think the one in between the building, the Brio, and the annex, as well as over where the Maxon corners might be. And so they were just asking curiously what was going on with the soil sample, what appeared to be soil samples.
Yes, Ms. Brandt, could I put you on the spot? You worked with them on the SAG funding, and I believe they're doing a lot of underground testing for remediation needs and foundation needs.
Correct. So it's just doing their due diligence and deciding on their design, construction design, and figuring out what the ground is like. We know it's all old lumber cinders, and so it's just urban fill, and they have to come up with the best approach for their construction.
Thank you.
Let's see, the multimodal trail there at Pinoqua through Rainbow Memorial Park should be bid out in the near future, so construction can start later this year in 21, and we're still hoping to have that entire trail completed here in 2021. Let's see, and Jefferson Street redevelopment, we've had a handful of developers express interest in it, but nobody's come forward for an option at this point in time. So we still are doing our marketing, and they're doing their due diligence at this point. And that's all I have to report. Be happy to answer any questions.
A couple of questions, Alan. First of all, on the Sawdust District RFP, I was surprised. I got surprised by a couple of developers who asked me questions, and I never saw the RFP before it went out into the public. Shouldn't RFP run through the RDA, who is actually selling the property?
Yes, and we had that in the RDA packet the month before it went out, is what I remember. I could double check, but we had the draft RFP for RDA comment, and I apologize if we didn't spend enough time on it at the actual meeting.
Yeah, I would have remembered seeing it because I wanted to see parts of it. And we had a couple of questions on that rolling deadline. April 17th, rolling into the next one, So I just wanted to read the details on that. So, okay, I'll look back through my notes too. Second question is a forward-looking one. So we get $21 million from the American Rescue Plan. I know there are limitations and strings attached to all of that, but it sure would be nice if we could allocate 10% of that to recreation. We could either do it on the Riverwalk Trail, on the Wyowash extension up by the cemetery towards Butamore Bridge, or really any, the park projects in Lakeshore Park that are going to be expensive. Do we know yet what the restrictions are in that $21 million and when we're gonna know that and when we can spend it? And who's going to make that decision?
Great questions that I don't have the answer to. I've heard from Mr. Roloff and Mr. Van Gumpel, the finance director, that they're trying to figure out the answers to your questions, but I don't think we have answers to your questions yet.
I can just imagine, hundreds of people like me with all these really good ideas just swarming down on city halls saying, well, we need $500,000, we need $1 million, we need a new building, we need a new trail. So it's just going to be, somebody should get a process pretty soon so we get it all organized, or an oversight committee or something that takes some of the pressure off city staff.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Belter, because as you can imagine, a number of other folks here in Oshkosh are asking those same questions, and more specifically about whether or not there will be a citizens' participation opportunity to weigh in. And I'm sure that, Mr. Davis and other department heads, looking back on some of our other projects, it would be a good question as to whether or not those plans that are sitting, quote unquote, on the shelf can be dusted off, right?
How can you possibly correctly prioritize spending $21 million of one-time funding So it can't really go into programs because then the program funding expires in 2 years. So it should go into things that we have to do now and pay money for. So it's probably streets and affordable workforce housing and some other logical things. But I'm just throwing out the challenge, and since we have all the staff on here, they're up to the challenge, I'm sure.
Yes,
So good luck with that. But if there's a committee, I might volunteer. I'd be happy to take part if you need me.
Well, at the legislative, joint legislative workshop that we had earlier this week, I believe it was there that there was some mention that there might be, depending upon those restrictions and guidelines, some kind of joint effort too, because the county also got 33 million, or is getting 33 million. So stay tuned.
Well, the state gets 3.1 billion. So to not have overlap of 3 different public jurisdiction entities all making these decisions would be a challenge that it'll be fun, but ultimately we're gonna have some great things come out of this. So I'm happy to see the funding. But good luck, Alan.
Yes, well, if I had 21 million, I could probably finish the Riverwalk now too.
That's what I'm thinking.
All right. Do we have anything else? I just wanted to share, Ms. Brandt, that an agency in the community commended you for your dedication and very late work on assisting them with a grant application this week. They were very grateful at how thorough and helpful you were. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second?
All right, please take the roll.
Sure. Stan? I think he's gone. Panic?
Aye.
Belter?
Aye.
And Palmieri.
Aye. All right, we are adjourned. Thank
And when
you,
do we go to
everybody.
in-person meetings? Anybody? Do we know when that is?
I know we're supposed to have a discussion at council on the next agenda. I asked Mr. Roloff to put it for a discussion item so we can start having a deadline or a plan, a timeline as to when we will. It makes more, in my opinion, it makes more sense that we, as council and boards and commissions, perhaps are consistently doing the same thing, because some are doing well and some are not doing so well. And so that's on the agenda for next week, or it should be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Have a good week.
Everybody.
Bye.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Same to you.